If you're living under a rock, you probably know what M1 and M2 is, but loads of people don't know which one they should buy, and in this video, I'll tell you all about them. Okay, so what's the difference between these two chips? The M2 chip is said to have 18% better CPU performance than M1 and 35% more GPU performance than M1. That sounds so much better when you listen to these statistics, and you might as well just buy one. But stop right there. Is it really worth the price to upgrade to M2? Well, not really. To buy a fully working M2 device, you would need to replace any existing M1 device if you have one, and a spec'd out or a good spec video editing machine would probably cost you at least £1,000. Meanwhile, an M2 device could be more expensive, costing you maybe over £1,500. Okay, firstly, for the test results, let me tell you why I chose the two devices. For the M1 device, I chose the M1 iMac as it uses the base M1 chip and it also has 16GB of RAM. For the M2 representative, we have the base M2 MacBook Air, and introduced in one of the best ads I've ever seen for Apple, it has a great impression. I chose these devices as they all have the base M chip, and they're not gonna go against like something like the M1 Ultra or maybe M2 Pro or something, which is really unfair in the test. Okay, let's get back. But does it really feel the same? I mean, yeah, sure. If you are editing videos or maybe editing photos, the M2 chip might feel a bit faster. But for regular use, I doubt that you'll ever find a huge difference between M1 and M2. Also, if you don't own an M chip and you're using Apple MacBooks or iMacs, I really recommend you upgrade to an M1 or M2 chip device. As for those chips, it's built for the Apple Macs, and what that means, it's gonna work fully for Macs, and unlike Intel chips, which is not fully made for a Mac. Okay, let's start with the Geekbench score. For those of you that don't know what's Geekbench, it's basically a software that tests your computer's hardware ability and how good your CPU or GPU or your computer's performance is. The Geekbench score of the M1 iMac is 1,737 and the M2 MacBook Air scores a 1,900. Okay, for comparison, an Intel Core i5 scored 1000 in the Geekbench test. And for the multi-core, the iMac scored 7270, and the M2 MacBook Air scored 8800. The Intel i5 scored 4500. As in the facts, you can see that an M chip is more powerful than an i5 chip, and it's not really that surprising. Oh hey, what's up? Could you just spare me 1 second to tell you about Storyblocks? Storyblocks is an ever-growing library which allows you to put stock videos, photos, audio, music, or much more in your video projects. With the unlimited all-access plan, you can quickly select a few clips, download them, and quickly use them in your video project. Do you know what's even cooler? Besides the stock footages, which I always use, there are something that I use even more, which is Premiere Pro files. They have loads of Premiere Pro tools that you can use, such as transitions or morphed files or whatever you want to need. I think you can find it right at Storyblocks. Also, a thing that's cool with Storyblocks is they now announced a Premiere Pro plugin, and for Premiere Pro users, they can add the plugin to Premiere Pro and download stock assets straight from Premiere Pro. Okay, so check out storyblocks.com/Isaac or go to the link in the description below, and let's get back to the video. Okay, let's talk about the speed of the SSD. I know this isn't really a chip related thing, but I think it's still a really interesting topic to talk about, comparing that a CPU can lead to storage. For reading, which means like when you open files on the SSD, the M1 iMac scored 2,839 megabits per second, while the M2 scored 2,453 megabits per second. For writing, like when you put files into the SSD, the M1 iMac scored 2,951 megabits per second and M2 scored 2,687 megabits per second. This is really interesting as the iMac's SSD is actually faster than the M2 MacBook Air's SSD, and I read a couple of reports on that as well, and it just seems like Apple kind of downgraded their SSDs. Okay, let's go back to the chip now. Let's say you're a regular user and you do some light work. Maybe you do some research or you type out documents, make PowerPoints or much more. This M1 iMac or any other M1 device is probably gonna fit you really well. And I mean, obviously, if you get an M2 device, you would probably feel that your laptop or desktop is a bit faster, but it's not really that much faster. And if you want to save a bit of money, you can buy an M1 product refurbished, which you'll get a really good price for that. I mean, an M1 Mac is probably gonna last you for at least 5 years. And I would recommend you at least go for 16 gigabytes of RAM, as that can make your computer feel faster and basically run smoother even after some time. Okay, how about somebody who edits videos or do some processor intensive tasks on their Mac? Well, I think that the M1 chip can at least last you for 3 years, but after that you will probably feel that the iMac is starting to feel slow and you might want to switch to a faster machine, maybe the M4 chip or M5 chip when you switch. But if you do like some really processor intensive tasks and you crave for that extra performance, I think that you could potentially buy an M2 device and sell your current M1 device if you want, or you can wait for the M2 Ultra Mac Studio or maybe even an M3 MacBook Pro. For the Resolve export speeds, if someone wants to know how it renders videos, the M1 iMac did the video in 38 seconds, but the M2 MacBook Air did the video in 45 seconds. This is again where it gets interesting, as the M1 iMac actually rendered the video faster than the M2 MacBook Air, but that could just be maybe the extra RAM that the iMac that could maybe just be the extra RAM that the iMac has, and I don't really think that's anything wrong with the M2 chip. So let's talk about my opinions. I think that the M2 chip is not really for the current M1 chips, and if you own an M1 device, maybe an M1 MacBook Pro or something, I don't think it's necessary or you need to upgrade to an M2 chip. I mean, if you want to upgrade, that's fine, but for me or for someone else who wants to do video editing, I think you should at least wait for M3 to come out. If you don't have an M1 Mac, then go ahead and do it. You'll feel that your computer runs so much faster, and I would really recommend you doing so. So this is it. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you understand the difference between M1 and M2. If you did, drop a like, subscribe if you like my content. Also, watch the review of the M2 MacBook Air right here and subscribe right here. It's Isaac from Isaac Productions, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.